Under the moonlight, on an autumn night, the wind blows the leaves of the trees. The hospital stands there, darkness surrounds the place and highlights a sense of mystery. Inside the autopsy room, Dr. Mark stands there, and many questions appear on his face. Dr. Sarah stands there, and her face looks sad, looking at the body of a young girl. She appears to be in her 30s, her hair is blonde and curly, her features look American, and her eyes are open, carrying a look of pain and resistance that she experienced before death. The effects of blows and shocks are clear on her long body, and the wounds are scattered in different places, indicating that she was subjected to violence. Dr. Mark begins to examine the victim to find a large wound around her neck. Mark says it seems that the blow around her neck with a sharp object is what caused her death. Sarah says, but it seems that she was tortured before her death in a brutal way. He returns to examine the wound, then raises his head and says it seems that it is a small pocket knife because the wound is not deep. Mark's face changes and he says sadly, "Why do humans do this to each other?" Sarah just stands there with questions on her face. Sarah says, "What was she doing?" Maybe that explains why she was targeted. Maybe a murderer or a house burglar. Mark says, confirming that the investigator will soon come back with more details about her life and work. The investigator enters the autopsy room, holding the victim's file in his hands. Dr. Sarah turns to him, asking. Sarah says, "What about her life? What was she doing?" The investigator replies in a serious tone. She was working as a freelance journalist, interested in matters related to the dark web. She was investigating a dangerous gang active there. The investigator says, it seems that Emily was working hard at her work in her office. She must have been working very intently on her laptop, browsing dangerous files related to the dark web. The investigator says, "I'll go now. I'll see you later in my office to talk about the case." Dr. Mark returns to examine the victim, noting traces of duct tape on her mouth, and minor cuts around her lips and traces of adhesive, proving that she was forcefully gagged. Mark sighs. She was gagged with duct tape, and she went through a lot of pain at the hands of these killers. Sarah responds, watching the body sadly, "She suffered a lot, they were very cruel to her." Mark points to the wounds scattered across the victim's body. It seems like they were sending a clear message. She may have gotten information that she shouldn't have gotten. The next day, Dr. Mark and Dr. Sarah meet with the detective in his office. They explain their observations about the condition of the body and where it was found. The detective tells them, "We found her on a deserted road, just lying there, but there is evidence that she was killed inside her house." Mark turns, saying, "We need to go to her house and investigate there." When they visit the victim's house, the team notices food scraps on the table, indicating that she was eating before she was attacked. They search for anything that would lead them to the killer, but they find nothing. Sarah asks where her laptop went. Where did it go? It must contain evidence. They discover that her computer is missing, confirming that the killers took it to cover up their crimes. In her office, Mark finds a frame with a picture of the victim. Above the frame is a small arrow that can barely be seen, but because Mark is used to these things, he searches for anything, even if it is small, that could contain evidence. After lifting the frame, he finds a paper hidden behind it on the wall, signed by journalist Emily. He reads it in a low voice. Emily says in it, "From Emily, the young journalist, to everyone who reads this letter. It is time for me to go. I only ask that you continue what I started to expose the dark web and all its secrets." Sarah gets angry and says, "They should be punished for their crimes. Why is she dying? Why aren't they dying? Why are they doing this just to hide their dirty work?" Mark says, "Just calm down, Sarah. She wanted to expose their true nature and she was working on this. It is a noble goal for her to do this, but she just has to tell the police about all this. Why did she choose to be alone in this? The investigator says, "You are right, doctor. Just why did you hide this from us until things got so bad that she was killed?" Sarah says, "The press and TV should publish awareness lessons that the dark web is a dangerous matter. Don't get entrenched in it, even though there are specialized agencies working to end the dark web issue." Mark says, "Yes, this is a very dangerous matter. They are criminals. They don't care about age or whether you are a young man or a young woman." The investigator says we have to leave now, and early in the morning the investigators and I will come back to find out the rest of the details. Dr. Mark and Dr. Sarah stand in front of the body in the autopsy room in complete silence, expressing their helpless grief. Moments later, Mark raises his head and says, "I have to write the police report. The case against an unknown person will be closed." Sarah replies in a desperate tone, "Is it going to be that simple? They killed a young woman in the prime of her life and we won't find her killer?" Mark calms her down. "We've done our job. The police have to do their part now. Trust them, Sarah." Sarah nods and begins to write the final report.